Yeah, we mentioned Shaun Alexander, former NFL MVP, and what was it, 05 where you had 27 rushing touchdowns? 05?
05.
05. Was there one rushing touchdown that you remember above the others?
Yeah, the 88-yarder against the Cardinals in this stadium.
He had, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Dan's obviously like resident Seahawk fan.
He's feeling it.
Like legit. And grew up in Wisconsin, doesn't like the Packers.
Yeah. Dave Craig was near from my hometown.
Oh, okay.
So,
So he met him when he's young, that sort of thing. But gigantic Seahawk fan, right? So I throw out like Warren Moon used to, when he played for the Seahawks, the ball felt longer.
Yeah.
When you throw a ball, it was like such a laser's longer. And when you would run, it felt like you weren't running hard. Was it a long stride? Like, what was the kind of secret to your ability to cover so much ground without, at least visually, it didn't look like you exerted that much effort?
Yeah, and I actually know what you're saying. I've got a 11-year-old son. He just turned 12, Justice, and I'm watching him, and I'm like, dude, are you playing hard? And he's killing kids. I mean, destroying people. And I'm like, are you? And
it's Shaun Alexander's son.
I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, that's why.
He is
family talk. That's why, like, I kind of feel like I'm underappreciated.
Yeah.
Times. It looks like I'm chilling, and I'm like, what are you? Hey, he scored 3 touchdowns. So I guess it. You know what I mean? It's
I think there's a lot of things to you. Like when you were at Alabama, and you don't know this, but I visited at basketball. I visited Alabama when you were playing there.
Yeah.
And you guys weren't great, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't get the adulation of all the rest of the Alabama backs. So I think that's part of it. In Seattle, it was before the Seahawks. You obviously had the Super Bowl year, but it was before you guys were a thing.
Yeah.
So I think there was some of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I also I feel that. I feel like when I was at Alabama, it was me and Chris Samuels, my left tackle, but there was no other offensive, like, we didn't know, like, receiver that was our quarterback that was, you know what I mean? And so, like, you see, like, Alabama's guys now, and it's great, and you can't help but compare that. But I'm like, well, dude, like, we still won the SEC, and we still win 10 games every year, but it's not over.
Not what it is
So
now.
they miss it. Yeah.
I'll give you one more theory. We've never seen a 37 move that fast because they're usually
37.
fullbacks.
Oh, so how'd you get number 37?
High school.
I know, but how?
I had a coach that was like, hey, you need to pick a number when everybody sees it. They're going to think Shaun Alexander.
It's true because I can only think of Larry Centers.
Who's your coach?
Yeah, his name is John Alfred, played college football at Western Kentucky.
And he told you that?
Came out here, yeah. It was like, yeah.
And you picked 37?
Picked 30. It was between 37 and 9, and my brother was a huge Notre Dame fan. So I remember watching, like, Notre Dame games, and Tony Rice was the quarterback.
Yeah, Tony Rice.
And I was like, oh, well, I know a 9. Do I know a 37? I was like, nope. And my goal was, like, to make that number hot.
Well, you definitely synonymous with numbers. I don't think it made it hot.
Yeah, no,
right?
It's sold. It was hot.
It was hot.
It was hot for Seahawks fan, but I'm saying there's not other guys that be like, man. 37.
I don't know. You get guys that do that now. Like, you know, like it's different now. Like, guys are like, I'm gonna get my own thing. But there's guys that be like, yeah, if I had to pick a number.
Can we all agree the rule change and letting all these guys change whatever they want is a bad rule?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Right?
Yes.
It's terrible.
Yes. It's awful.
Yes. I mean,
you don't have receivers that wear 80s anymore. They all want single digits or the teens.
Yeah, I don't dig that. I don't dig that at all. Okay, a bunch of things I want to get to.
Yeah, let's get it.
Let's discuss the running back position.
Yeah.
Because you still have to run the football, but it is different. I mean, like, look, the Eagles run the football a ton. They actually just run with their quarterback a lot, as well as running backs.
3 different running backs.
And 3 different running backs. There still are great running backs in the league. As a guy, it feels like you're kind of one of the last of the Mohicans of guys that was a give him the ball 30 times a game, and he'll carry your team and figure it out. What's it like for you to see what's happening in your position?
Yeah, it feels bittersweet. I feel like it's trickled all the way down to high school. So because every team has kind of got the fun and gun, swinging running backs, so now receivers are trying to play running. Everybody's trying to be Debo, who was really a running back. But anyway, so so everybody's trying to do that. So now running backs would get 12 to 15 carries, and that's considered your horse. And you're like, what? They're just getting warmed up. So because of that, it's trickled down so many that no guys are like really preparing themselves. Like, you got to train differently when you know you're like, I'm going to get the ball 25 times a game and 35 in the big games. You just think differently. You know, you think, oh, man, this is going to be like this. It's like that Rocky versus the Russian kind of training I've got to go to for the whole year. Did
you see this coming with Russ?
I'm not really worried about Russ. I feel like he's going to play better. Well, I mean, you get Coach Payton, so he's going to be better. But I just think that whenever you're in a new system, there's always this, how you laugh, how you point, how you think. Everybody loves your gifts and everybody hates your quirks, but you kind of get comfortable with them. And so that's how Seattle worked. And so you get the new coach in and he's trying to figure them out. I said the biggest problem, though I'm still cheering for Seattle, was when they kicked that long field goal the first game of the season. Well, you just go for that simply because you paid a quarterback that much money. You can't let the hero of your first game be a 60-yard field goal. It's got to be, we gave the ball to our quarterback and he stuck it and he won the game, or we stuck it, we barely missed, but we're going to ride or die with this guy. And it carries a psyche that football's way more mental, and it jacked up the psyche for the team.
You were part of that, not only when you won the MVP, you're part of the Super Bowl team. Yep. And I brought up that game because, and I'm not a Bengal fan.
Yeah.
I just felt, man, they were on the short side of several calls.
Yeah.
Even the last one, which I understand he pushed him when he's out of bounds, but like, why? It's so close. Why are you calling it there? Didn't hit him out of bounds. You were on that Seahawks team against the Steelers.
Yeah.
And forgive me if I'm wrong, but that was the Super Bowl that I remember as, man, it felt like the Seahawks were getting screwed.
Yeah.
What was that like to be a part of?
Yeah, that game was definitely weird, and I'm not a person that makes excuses, but it was one of those dang, this is weird. And I realized that was the one and only time we've ever done this where we made the referees be like that was their all-star game. And so all the referees, the best guy that scored this one, about the best back judge, the best front, the best. And so they put them all together. So they were just missing things that a normal team, if you're looking at the line and I'm always looking at the backfield and I know that I'm going to catch stuff that could be possibly, quote, unquote, your job, but we're a team, then we get it. But when you get an all-star team, you miss those. And so everybody, all the referees, instead of paying back the way they do, it's like, hey, I'll let you go the next time. You know what I mean? That's the way it happens. That's like the gentlemanship because people are flawed, Well, the guy holds this time. He calls it. Oh, man, I might not have been a hold. I won't call it next time. Well,
the
guess
next
what?
time the other guy calls it.
Right, but here's the problem. No, they didn't call it. So when Steelers were holding, they didn't call it. Oh, I need to make up that. Seahawks hold, they call it. We're losing in both situations. And they did it with pass interference. Remember DJ at the beginning of the game?
Yes.
Bumps. Hines Ward throws our corner on the ground, catches it, gets a first down. We're like, well, look, are you going to call it?
Locklear's hold, Ben at the goal line.
It's crazy.
Hasselbeck's trip.
14-10. Jeremy Stevens catches at the 1-yard line. They call holding on a guard.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen. We win the Super Bowl 17-14. And what usually happened is we would score. I'd score the touchdown. We'd run the ball. You're going to run 17G lead. I'm going to score. You know what I mean? And now we're up 17-14. Steelers would try it. It didn't work. And I break another long run. That's how we used to beat teams. And the game would have been 24-14.
Is the Madden curse real? Because
no.
The way I remember was you were on the cover and then you broke your foot.
Yeah,
and that was the beginning of all the Madden curse. Did you go I should have done the Madden cover?
No. Oh, there's 32 quarterbacks, 32 running backs, 64 guys. 50 of them don't play. They don't play every game. You know what I mean? That's just football. The truth is this guy that had 5 years of 15 touchdowns and thousands of yards every year. Would turn 31 and a big fat lineman fell on his foot, and he broke it. So that's just football.
Could be the Madden curse.
Could be.
It could be. I got one for you. Oh, I think Mike Holmgren is so underappreciated.
Yeah.
We talk Hall of Fame, and I know he's up, at times he's up for it, but he's not, hasn't made it. What was it like playing for him? For two reasons. He took Favre young and then made him Favre, then goes to Seattle, and then brings Hasselbeck over, has Matt Young, and then you guys then transition. And I don't think enough praise goes to him. What was it like playing for Mike Holmgren?
I think he was a genius. I mean, so you gave me he's Bill Walsh's prodigy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's the offense
gave
coordinator.
You the ball.
Calling all the plays.
Give me the ball. I'm kidding.
But he did. He called Montana. He called Young. He goes there, gets his own team, gets Brett Favre, wins Super Bowls with them, comes to Seattle, and Matt's my boy. So I would say well, Matt's not Favre, Montana, or Young. But what's he do? He says, I'm going to shift the ball, and now I'm going to run the ball with Shaun Alexander, and we go smash people just the way they did in Green Bay. They were always score right before the half, score. Matt would come around, boom, throw the deep ball. We get in short yards. We run 6-minute offense with the 4-minute offense with the last 6 minutes of games, and we knock people out. Coach Holmgren was a brilliant person because he put the guys on the field to go make the plays. It worked.
Walter Jones. Give me your best Walter Jones story.
I mean, Walt would take people that thought they were good, and they would tackle me 10 yards down the field and be like, got him. It was cool, man. Between Walt and Hutch, and I always want to give them such great praise. They would dominate two guys, and they would dominate in such a way that all the other guys, so there's 9 other guys that still got to make a tackle, so it's still the NFL. But I would be able to play the game of like, the kid running behind the table. I would make people, I would know there'd be such a push that I could actually have linebackers have to bubble and I could slide on out, or I would stand like I am, boom, plant, they're bubbling, and I'd cut back. And so when you got them guys, like I'm running people into other people, and what happened is teams started, no one started running over, so they would all stay on play side. And I would run to the left and cut it back, and they'd all. By the end of the game, I could run straight down the field, right behind them, and they'd be like, "Look like they were just untouched." And a little bit of it is because Walton Hutch were awesome. Max Strong was a great fullback.
Max Strong,
and then a great fullback name.
Oh, great fullback name.
But they would never be able to go and be able to play it because they always had to guard the cutback, and we just mashed teams. It was awesome.
Just mashed teams. I know football and faith are two things that come together in something that is really a good push in your life.
Yeah.
For this version of your life.
Yeah.
What are you involved in?
So I actually started, it must have been like 10, 11 years ago when Roger first became the commissioner and I was retired. He said, "Hey, Shaun, what you doing now?" And I said, "Yeah, I mentor a couple of Bama guys, a couple of guys in the league." So what are you doing? I said, "Well, I didn't have a name for it now, but he said if you put it on paper, we would need it." And I said, "Yeah." So I developed the PLP, the Professional Leadership Program, and it's really just teaching guys how to master the 5 Fs: fame, family, friends, finances, and their future. And fame is really about identity. Who are you really? What you really about? What do you really want to happen? And then we teach people how to brand that. But then family is about responsibility and accountability. Like, who's responsible for you? Oh, your mom and dad. Who are you responsible for? Oh, your kids. And we get to help, like, get guys to make healthy decisions, have healthy relationships. And then friends is like the ecosystem. Like, I just saw, like, my old marketing guy from all my years in Seattle and all the EA Sports and all that. But what happens is I think the ESPN 30 for 30 said about 78% are going to be broke in 2 years after they retire. And they're like, "Oh, let's do a financial program at them." And I'm like, look, if you got a person believing that it's their responsibility to pay for everybody they grew up with, and, most people know my story, but my dad had 9 kids from 4 different women. You know what I mean? If it's my job to pay for everybody I grew up with, I'm going to be broke. But to get healthy and be like, "Oh, no, like, everybody's still making decisions, and it's okay. And, hey, I can't give you a new house. Maybe I can give you $1,000 and help you with this." Oh, man, and I might pay for dinner once, but I'm not going to pay for dinner every time. That's just being healthy. Like, no one would expect that out of a regular person. And so by walking people through those 5 Fs, I can finally get them to the 5th F, which is the future. And I can talk about leaving a real legacy, being a community influencer. And I partner with a great group called Stand Together Foundation. It's about 700 of the most successful businessmen, women, and philanthropic leaders in the country, and they put their money and their wisdom behind helping anybody that's going to impact the country. And so they helped me with a group called Cafe Momentum, which is it's a restaurant, but they take kids into juvie, and instead of them kids becoming throwaways, which 50% is recidivism in Dallas, they go through the program and they have, like, I call them aunties, uncles, the social workers,
Sure.
community. They help all these kids get an identity, know that they're important, and it's got 11% recidivism. And so I said, hey, let's call the NFL. We called it Inspire Change, and Roger and Troy and Tracy was like, let's put one in every NFL city. And so the goal is like, man, like, what happens if the whole world thinks that no one's a throwaway? And we're seeing some great things. So we'll open up in Nashville and Pittsburgh next. So that'll be the next year. And then we'll have 5 other places.
Go to Shaun Alexander. Remember, that's SHAUN, ShaunAlexander.com for more information. Shaun, absolute pleasure to catch up with you. Go down memory lane, especially for our guy Buyer right here. And appreciate you joining
Brother,
us.
this is good, y'all, man. Thank you all for having me, man.
Appreciate it.
We're going to do more stuff, man.